The sea was a sheet of cold metal the morning they came for me. I was sitting on the porch of my cabin on the Olympic Peninsula, a chipped enamel mug of burnt coffee in my hand, watching fog roll through the pines like silent smoke. I hadn't spoken to another person in over 2 weeks. I wasn't avoiding the world exactly, I just didn't see the point of going back to it. After everything, the silence was cleaner. The SUV that came up my gravel road was black and boxy. Government tinted. No plates. I knew the type, too clean for locals, too silent for civilians. It pulled up slow, tires crunching the frost-dusted stones, and stopped without a sound. A man stepped out, lean and military in plain clothes. He wore hiking boots, jeans, and a black windbreaker zipped up to the neck. The way he moved told me everything. Ex-operations, still under orders. He didn't smile. "Lieutenant Elias Morgan?" he asked. "Not anymore," I said, not getting up. He looked around, assessing everything. The slope of the porch, the empty beer bottles, the patched satellite dish barely holding to the roof. Then he handed me a thick envelope. No markings, no return address, sealed with wax. I opened it slowly. Inside was a high-resolution photo, a perfect black cube lying on the seafloor. Sharp edges. No marine growth. Depth tag, 11400m. Below that, a codename stamped in white, Sentinel 13. No dimensions, no context. Just a name. "What the hell is it?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just said, "We need you for a consult. 1 month. Classified site. Civilian chain of command, military oversight." I stared at the image. The cube looked wrong, too symmetrical, too clean for the deep. I'd spent 12 years underwater. I'd seen how the sea treated foreign objects. This thing hadn't been touched. "Where is it?" "North Pacific. Coordinates available after clearance." "Why me?" "You were baffling. You've seen pressures most people can't survive." My jaw tightened at that. No one outside the DoD was supposed to know about baffling. That was the project that got Mara killed. That was the dive that took my hearing in one ear and left half my dreams wet and red. "I'm not interested," I said. He nodded like he expected that. "You will be." He left the envelope and walked back to the SUV. It pulled away without turning around. The road swallowed it. I burned the envelope that night. Pitched it into the stove with the last of my dry wood. The wax hissed as it melted. The photo curled, edges blackening, but the image didn't go. It clung to my vision like a scar. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up with Mara's voice in my ear. "Eli," she whispered. Clear as breath. I sat up, heart pounding, but the room was empty. No lights. No wind. Just that stillness that comes before something breaks. "You know what it is?" her voice said again. "You've always known." She'd been gone 3 years. Crushed under 8 tons of failed ballast after a systems error in the Mariana tests. I'd never heard her voice again until now. I called the number from memory. Didn't even need the card. 3 days later, I was on a C-23 transport bound for the Bering Sea. No manifest. No customs. Just 5 other bodies strapped into jump seats, all silent, all civilian by appearance but clearly not strangers to classified work. We landed on the deck of the USNS Newton, a research vessel in name only. She had no flag on her mast, no crew outside the command tower, and antenna arrays thick as tree trunks. The air stank of steel and freon. As I stepped onto the deck, I felt something in my gut turn over. Not fear. Not duty. Recognition. Like I was finally returning to where I never should have left. The USNS Newton didn't look like a research vessel. She looked like a ghost ship that forgot how to die. 40 years of salt had eaten patterns into her hull, and the deck plating groaned underfoot with every step. The antennas above crackled constantly, even though no one ever seemed to speak on the radios. The interior was dim, narrow hallways lined with matte gray bulkheads and flickering lights. No welcome, no salutes, just a man at the hangar lift who told me to follow. He didn't say his name. Didn't ask mine. They took me 2 levels down, past empty labs and sealed compartments, to a debriefing room that looked like it hadn't been used since the Cold War. A large table sat in the center, bolted to the floor. 6 chairs. 1 screen. There were 5 people already seated. I scanned the room automatically, assessing habits burned into me from deployments. The first was a woman in her mid-30s, angular face, black hair in a tight bun. She watched me without blinking, no fear in her posture. A neurotype. Scientist probably. She nodded once when I entered, more acknowledgement than greeting. To her right sat a man built like a cinder block in a flight jacket. Scars on both knuckles. He watched the room like he was looking for threats. Combat posture, Russian accent when he finally spoke. But his ID badge had a US flag and Commander Alexei Dragunov stamped under it. The third was a younger man in a patched hoodie with oil stains on the cuffs. He tapped his foot non-stop and kept muttering to himself, adjusting a wristband with what looked like scrap tech soldered onto it. He looked up once and smirked. "You must be the ghost diver." "Trick?" he said before I asked. "Nathan Walden. Call me Trick. Everyone does." "Don't speak for me," the next woman said. She looked young, early 20s maybe. Quiet intensity in her eyes. She wore a green windbreaker over a jumpsuit and had a data pad filled with schematics open in her lap. Mei Zhang. Subsurface ecology and marine biomechanisms. "Sounds made up," Trick said, grinning. "And yet," she muttered, not looking up. The last was an older man, maybe 60, dressed like a lecturer at Oxford. Tweed jacket. Frayed tie. Hands folded neatly on the table. British accent clipped and proper. Dr. Lewis Featherstone. "I analyze things. Languages, codes, anomalies. And when applicable, dreams." "Dreams?" "Elias Morgan," I said simply and took the last chair. A minute passed. Then the door opened and a woman walked in. Tan uniform. Regulation boots. The room straightened unconsciously. "I'm Commander Yarrow," she said. "I oversee this expedition. Your contracts are sealed. Your background's cleared. Your mission is now classified under Tier 9 protocol. That means you don't speak of it. Not to anyone. Not ever." She tapped the console. The lights dimmed. The screen came alive with bathymetric scans. A trench, narrow and long, like a surgical cut through the Earth's crust. "This is Zone 13H. Discovered 8 months ago during a satellite mapping pass. Uncatalogued due to abnormal return signals. It goes deeper than expected, 11,400 meters. At its base we found this." An image appeared, the cube. Sentinel-13. "Perfect geometry," Yarrow said. 21 feet per side. No thermal signature. No apparent decay. It's been down there longer than we've had sonar, maybe longer than we've had an ocean. Trick let out a low whistle. Featherstone didn't react. Attempts to scan it result in signal looping. Audio distortions. Partial data recursion. Our initial crew reported headaches, nausea, vivid dreams. Then radio silence. Their last message was a single phrase, "It watches." Pause. We lost contact 10 minutes later. "Lost?" I asked. "Their pod imploded during ascent. No survivors." Dragunov leaned forward. "We're the second team then." Yarrow's eyes didn't blink. "You're the last." She outlined the plan. The Newton would stay in position above Zone 13H. We'd descend in a 2-stage submersible system. 1 habitat module and 1 mobile pod. My role was lead on habitat integrity and pressure monitoring. Trick would manage mobility systems and AI diagnostics. Zhang was on biosample analysis. Saito, Dr. Hannah Saito, the neurobiologist, would handle cognitive observations. Dragunov provided tactical oversight. Featherstone was listed as special advisory. No one asked what that meant. "You'll have 72 hours at depth," Yarrow said. "After that, extraction becomes non-viable due to current shifts." "What's the actual goal?" I asked. She hesitated. The first crack in her tone. "Observation," she said. "Minimal interaction. Do not touch the artifact. Do not attempt to move it. Record everything. And above all else, stay inside the boundary zone." "What happens if we cross it?" Yarrow met my eyes. "We don't know." She left the room without another word. No one spoke for a long time. We just sat there watching the loop of the cube spinning on the screen. It didn't look ancient. It didn't look broken. It looked awake. The Kraken 6 hung above the trench like a coffin waiting to drop. Matte black, 6 inches of titanium shell, triple redundant life support. It looked more like a weapon than a vessel, and maybe that's what it really was. We loaded in just after midnight. The ocean above was calm, but I'd been in this long enough to know the stillness meant nothing. Water has moods, not mercy. Inside, the lighting was soft, the air metallic and cold. Seats ringed the chamber, harnessed and tight. Trick muttered diagnostics under his breath, his fingers dancing across the control interface like he was playing piano in hell. "I patched the sonar feed to include a pulse shift overlay," he said. "Might let us see echoes the computer misses. Or scramble our inner ears," May mumbled. She looked pale already. Hannah sat across from me, eyes closed, breathing steady. Dragunov hadn't taken his gloves off. Featherstone clutched a small leather-bound notebook like a holy relic. No one talked much. When the hatch sealed, the sound was final. Then we dropped. The descent began with a low hum, the pressure equalizers kicking in as we slipped into black. The world outside vanished. No moon. No stars. Just a slow roll downward through layers of liquid darkness. At 200 meters, surface comms degraded. At 600, we lost GPS. Trick adjusted the external cams. Static. Then, nothing. The ocean absorbed us completely. This is normal, Hannah said, though no one asked. Below the photic zone, light doesn't matter. Just motion, sound, pressure. But something about the silence felt wrong. Too thick. Too alert. At 1,500 meters, Dragunov asked the question we were all thinking. What if the artifact affects systems before we reach it? Trick snorted. If it does, we'll find out when we implode. Featherstone looked up slowly. Or when we start remembering things we've never lived. The sub dipped again, groaning faintly. I checked the external sensors. Still nothing. No bioluminescence. No current. No movement. It was like descending through oil. Time warped down there. Minutes felt stretched, elastic. I couldn't tell how long we'd been falling. At some point, May started humming under her breath. A low tune I didn't recognize. Is that a hymn? Hannah asked. May blinked. What? You were humming. I don't know that song. We didn't press her. But the tune stuck in my head like something I'd heard in a hospital once. A dying room. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then returned. Internal search, Trick said too quickly. No cause, Hannah muttered, reviewing the readout. I looked toward the viewport. Total blackness pressed against the glass like skin. No movement, no reflection. I found myself wishing something would move, just to remind me the world still existed. Then it did. It emerged slowly as though the water itself was peeling away. A shape. A form. Not glowing, not outlined, defined by absence. Sentinel-13. The cube floated on the seafloor, untouched by time. Perfect geometry, every side seamless. Not carved. Not placed. Grown. That was my first thought, like it had always been there, waiting for the world to catch up. The sonar pinged. Once. Then again. Then, silence. Loss of feedback, Trick whispered. Hannah leaned forward, her pupils dilating. It's absorbing the signal. More like bending it inward, I said. It's pulling sound into itself. We drifted closer. No propulsion. It was like something wanted us to approach. I checked my oxygen levels. Fine. Pressure, stable. Heart rate, spiking. Something shifted in the cabin. A feeling like we were no longer descending but falling sideways. The horizon no longer meant anything. Do you hear that? Featherstone asked suddenly. We all went still. There was a voice. Faint. Inside the comms. Eli. My stomach dropped. What? I asked. Featherstone stared at me. I didn't say your name. It came from the right channel, Trick said. That's your suit mic. I hadn't spoken. A second voice. This time whispering. We're still down here. Dragunov reached for the manual override. We abort. Now. No, Hannah snapped. We're here. We record. The lights flickered again. May screamed. On the monitor, her vitals had spiked. Something touched my hand, she gasped. But it wasn't real. It was warm. No one touched you, I said, standing. Everyone stay strapped. I saw my brother, she whispered. He was outside. Smiling. He's dead, Trick muttered. I know, she whispered. We hit bottom with a soft thud. No shock. No debris. Just stillness. Then, through the viewport, something changed. Not the cube. The world around it. The sand began to shift. Not from motion. From pattern. Writing. Bliss. Symbols I couldn't read but somehow recognized. My throat went dry. I've seen those before, I whispered. Where? Hannah asked. In a dream, I said, but I wasn't sure whose. No one moved. No one spoke. In the silence, the cube seemed to breathe. The habitat module extended from the Kraken like an umbilical cord. Bolted into the seabed 20 meters from Sentinel-13, it was barely large enough for the 6 of us. 2 rooms, an equipment bay, a command alcove, and a pressurized lock that led back into the ocean's black throat. They called it the sea glass. I called it a tin can strapped to a nightmare. Once we secured atmospheric stability, we deployed the perimeter beacons. Trick launched the drones, small fish-like machines with swiveling lenses and soft whirring motors. May set up the sampling lines to test water composition and sedimentation. Hannah monitored our vitals. Featherstone paced, murmuring into his notebook. Dragunov stayed armed, always watching the viewport. The cube loomed outside like a buried god. For a while, everything was quiet, focused, professional. Just another dive with strange readings and overpaid consultants. Trick joked that the artifact would probably turn out to be a Soviet satellite shaped funny. No one laughed. Then the first sound came. It was faint, rhythmic, like breathing through a closed throat. At first, we thought it was feedback in the suit comms, but Trick froze when he heard it. "That's not our system," he said. "Faulty line." I asked. "No. This is embedded." He tapped into the feed. The sound played on a loop, cycling just below audible range. But there was a pattern to it, too regular for noise, too imperfect for code. Trick leaned close to the mic and whispered something without realizing it. "What did you say?" I asked. He blinked. "Nothing. You repeated something." I don't know. It just came out." Hannah narrowed her eyes. "Are you hearing voices?" Trick rubbed his temples. "No. Just thoughts. Not mine." She made a note on her tablet. I saw her hand tremble. May drifted toward the viewport. She'd been staring out for 10 minutes. Her breath fogged the glass slightly, even though the module was climate-controlled. "He moved," she whispered. "Who?" I asked. She looked over her shoulder, her eyes distant. "My brother. There's no one out there." He was waving at me. Same shirt he wore the day he drowned. No one spoke. The silence became heavy. "I think it's hypoxia," Hannah offered. "We're adapting to depth." Dragunov scoffed. "And the dead come say hello during adaptation?" "I'm being clinical, not dismissive," she said. We knew cognitive drift was possible. I stayed quiet. I didn't want to admit what I'd already heard. That night, if you could call it night, while everyone pretended to rest in the bunk alcoves, I sat alone by the main terminal. The cube hovered outside the viewport like an idea waiting to become real. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then I heard her again. "Mara. Soft. Close. You're so close, Eli." I turned slowly, but the room was empty. "Don't be afraid," she said. "This is the place." I reached toward the sound instinctively, hand brushing the comm array. Static flickered across the display. The oxygen alarm chirped once, then stopped. No cause registered. I ran diagnostics. Everything came back nominal. I closed my eyes. She was still there. "You remember the tunnel?" she whispered. "You remember the scream?" My skin went cold. I did remember the tunnel. From the Bathylene dive. The part one hadn't told anyone. The final descent where the comms filled with a human scream, and no one else heard it. Until now. I gripped the edge of the console to keep from shaking. "You're not real," I whispered. But she laughed. That laugh I hadn't heard since before the accident. It gutted me. "Real is only what you let in," she said. The next morning Hannah looked pale. She avoided my gaze. During our check-in she finally spoke. "I dreamed of a child," she said quietly. "Whose?" Trick asked. "Mine. I don't have one. But I knew his name. What he smelled like. The way his laugh sounded." Featherstone closed his notebook gently. "It's begun." "What has?" I asked. He didn't answer. Dragunov leaned against the bulkhead. "This thing's not just an object. It's a carrier," I said before I could stop myself. They looked at me. "Carrier of what?" Hannah asked. I looked back toward the cube. "Us," I said. "It's carrying us. But not the way we understand." May was still by the glass, watching something none of us could see. Trick's instruments began flickering. Systems that had no power source activated, drew symbols across their displays, then died. "I didn't do that," he whispered. The drones outside stopped moving. One by one they turned toward the cube and powered down. Hannah finally said what we were all thinking. "It's watching." I woke to the sound of someone breathing beside me. Not snoring, not sighing, breathing measured and deliberate. But when I turned, my bunk was empty. The module lights were low, dim to simulate night, but there was a glow leaking from the command alcove. I got up quietly, stepping over the tangle of cables and equipment bags. My joints ached. Pressure fatigue maybe, or just something worse. Featherstone sat at the console, hunched over a notepad, scribbling furiously. The screen above him displayed nothing. No sonar, no telemetry, no feed from the drones. Just static, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. I cleared my throat. "Doc." He didn't look up. "Featherstone?" He turned his head slowly. His eyes were bloodshot. Not red, fractured like the veins had shattered under pressure. "Do you hear the ringing?" he asked softly. "There's no. It comes from the seams of the station," he said. A tone. Almost musical. "You can't hear it until you stop trying." I stepped closer. He'd filled 10 pages with symbols, jagged, geometric, looping back into themselves. They weren't English, or any alphabet I knew. "What language is that?" He stared at the page. "I don't know, but my hand does." Then he smiled, and for a moment he didn't look like himself. "I think it's a message, but not to us. It's from us. Just not the version that stayed human." I backed away. By morning the crew was unraveling. Trick argued with May over calibration protocols, full shouting accusations of sabotage. May claimed he'd erased her bio readings. Trick said she'd unplugged the neural buffer array and left it looping. Hannah intervened, but even she looked shaken. "I saw a light in the water," she said later, pulsing in rhythm. "It synced with my heartbeat." "Hallucination," Dragunov snapped. "We're past our pressure cycle." "Don't you feel it?" she asked. "Like we're inside something alive?" Featherstone had stopped talking entirely. He just wrote. His hands were blistered from pressure suit contact, but he didn't notice. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "Preparing the inside for when the outside gives up." Whatever that meant. Dragunov called a vote, go back to the Kraken, signal for extraction. Only one problem. Navigation was gone. The beacons, our return markers, had stopped transmitting. When we tried to ping the Kraken, we got no reply. Comms weren't broken. They just stopped existing. Like the systems forgot there was ever an above. I ran a manual scan. Our position had shifted. But we hadn't moved. "I don't understand this," I said. "We haven't changed location, but the seafloor's changed under us." "Explain," Dragunov said. "It's like the terrain has rewritten itself." "That's not possible. None of this is." Trick rebooted the control relay. The external feed blinked on, briefly, and we saw the cube again. But it was closer now. Or bigger. Or both. "I didn't authorize propulsion," Dragunov barked. "We didn't move," May said quietly. "It moved us." Everyone went silent. "I want to speak to the Newton," Dragunov said. "Now." I tried. The signal pinged outward, and then curved back. Not distorted. Returned. As if the ship wasn't up there anymore. Or as if we weren't down here. Hannah gripped the edge of the console. "I think it's isolating us." "Why?" "To finish the rewriting," Featherstone said without looking up. "That night, I caught Dragunov dismantling the emergency beacon." "What are you doing?" I asked. "If it pings again and they hear us, they might come. We can't allow that." "Are you insane?" He turned. His eyes were wild. "No. I'm the only one still thinking like a soldier. We brought this thing attention. If it gets out, it's a cube. A structure. It's a brain." He stepped closer. Or a mouth. "And we're already in the throat." He backed away before I could respond. "I'll sleep near the exit," he said. "Just in case it tries to come in." Featherstone didn't sleep at all. He stayed awake, reciting the same phrase over and over in a whisper. 7 minds. 6 survive. 1 remembers. 1 remains. I didn't ask what it meant. I started dreaming of the Bathyline tunnels again, except this time they were filled with whispering. Soft voices, endless, layered over each other like threads in a knot. I saw Mara again. She was wearing a diving suit, faceplate cracked, eyes glowing blue from the inside. She mouthed something through the glass. I woke up with blood on my lips. I'd bitten through my cheek. The cube hasn't moved in hours. But now, sometimes it pulses. Not visually. Not physically. Emotionally. When I stare at it through the viewport, it stares back. I know that sounds insane, but I feel it. Like I'm not looking at it anymore. I'm looking into it. And it's smiling. May was the first to say it out loud. "I think the walls are breathing." She stood in the central junction of the habitat, staring at the bulkhead like it had just whispered to her. Her hand was outstretched, fingertips brushing the cold metal surface. "Watch," she said. We watched. At first, nothing. Then maybe? A slight shift. A flex like the plating expanded just a millimeter and then returned. It could have been pressure fluctuations. Could have been nothing. But after everything else, nothing felt like nothing anymore. "They pulse when I sleep," May added. "Like lungs. But not ours." Trick muttered something and went back to the diagnostics panel, fingers jittering across buttons that weren't responding anymore. Half the systems had frozen or glitched into nonsense characters. Even his override interface started feeding back gibberish in repeating loops. I noticed one segment flickering, 3 lines of text over and over. Trick.walden.0812.report. Error, loop acknowledged. Trick.walden.0812.report. Is that your ID tag? I asked. He blinked. Yeah, that's my internal comm log. But I didn't open it. He dove into the log directory. And then he froze. What is it? He didn't answer. Just slowly pulled out a thermal printed notepad from beneath the console. It was standard issue for note-keeping. On the top page was his handwriting. Familiar loops and rushed caps. Do not trust her. She's not the same one that went down. What the hell is that? Hannah asked. I didn't write this, Trick said. May backed away. Who's her? Who are you talking about? I don't know. He looked at me. I swear. I didn't write this. Dragunov reached for his sidearm. We're done. We surface now. No more debate. We can't navigate, I said. Then we improvise. But before he could move, the drone panel chimed. A feed had activated, automatically. It was one of the external units Trick had launched earlier. The camera view panned across the trench, black sand shimmering under faint LED light. Then it turned. Toward people. 6 of them. They were walking along the seafloor in single file, slowly, deliberately. I thought the drones were offline, Hannah whispered. They are, Trick said. They're us, May said. It was true. Each figure matched someone in the crew. Outfits, builds, even movements. Except there was something off about them, jerky, incomplete. Their faces were blurred, or maybe absent. Then one stopped and turned toward the drone. I leaned closer. It was me. Same profile. Same gait. But when the figure raised its hand, I saw it wasn't waving. It was pointing. Straight at the drone. The feed cut out. We didn't speak for an hour after that. The silence became unbearable. Hannah eventually stood. I ran a cognitive scan while you all slept. Dream residue patterns. They're syncing. Syncing? I asked. Our dreams are starting to match. Not symbolically, literally. Details, architecture, even dialogue. Like a broadcast? I said. She nodded. Like something's transmitting a template and forcing it into us. Featherstone smiled faintly from the corner. A new memory palace. One we didn't build. That night I heard Mara again. But not like before. This time she sounded strained, like her voice was being filtered through something alien. They're using us, she whispered. You need to leave Eli. While you still remember how. I closed my eyes. What are they? But she didn't answer. I saw her face. It was mine. Her mouth opened and I heard dozens of voices speak at once. What survives isn't who leaves. It's what stays behind. The next morning, Trick ran another scan. He found a subdirectory in the habitat logs labeled Existing Replicas, 006. It was buried deep, under layers of system protections he didn't install. He didn't touch it. Dragunov dismantled the lock on the emergency hatch. We're walking out. You step into that water, you won't be the same, Hannah warned. He looked at her, eyes glassy. None of us are the same. Haven't been for days. May huddled in the corner, whispering to herself. Featherstone drew a symbol on the wall with a grease pencil, one from his book. It looked like a circle being turned inside out. I sat at the viewport. Sentinel-13 didn't move, but it watched. And inside my head, I began to forget things I should have known. My old crew's names. The smell of salt. The weight of guilt. New memories formed in their place. And some of them weren't mine. Featherstone stopped responding to his name. He sat in the sleeping alcove, spine rigid, lips moving in slow, mechanical murmurs. His notebook had fallen to the floor, pages curled with moisture. He stared straight ahead, eyes unblinking. At first, we thought he was asleep with his eyes open. Then he began to speak in a voice that wasn't his. It was deeper, heavier, like it had traveled through liquid for centuries before reaching the air. No axis, no entry. All thought is recursion. The words came in perfect rhythm. No emotion, no inflection. Hannah backed away. Louis, I said, you're not well. His gaze flicked toward me. For a second, something like recognition. Then it was gone. The self is a structure, he said. Built on repetition. Break the cycle. Enter the I. He didn't speak again for hours. Hannah stopped sleeping entirely. She recorded audio logs constantly, mumbling into her mic, repeating dates, faces, names of people who didn't exist. On the fourth day, she looked up at me with hollow eyes. "I remember giving birth," she said. "What?" "I was in a hospital room. White walls. Machines beeping. There was a nurse with red hair. I remember the pain. The pressure. I remember his name." "Whose?" "My son's," she whispered. "Elliot. You don't have a son." She stared at her hands like they didn't belong to her. I remember holding him. I remember his weight. But when I try to see his face, it's covered in black. She looked back at me, her voice small. "Do you think memory can be installed?" Dragunov worked in silence, disassembling the pressure clamps on the outer door. He'd retrieved a demolition charge from the equipment locker, standard protocol in case of structure collapse. Now he sat in the corner, wiring it with clinical precision. "You're going to blow it up?" I asked. "If we can't leave, neither can it." "What do you think it is?" I stopped thinking, he said. "I watch. It shows things. It wants something. Maybe if we're gone, it forgets we were here. You'll kill us all." He looked up. "We're already dead." That night I had the dream again. But this time it wasn't a dream. I was back in the bathylene chamber. The emergency lights were flashing. Alarms screaming. The compartment was flooding. I remember the cold. The pain in my ear. Then, nothing. Except this time I didn't survive. I saw myself from outside, my body slumped in a harness, blood in my eyes. A rescue team pulling me out too late. A memorial service. My mother sobbing. Mara standing in the front row, holding folded fabric. I watched it all like a film. A version of me that never left that chamber. When I woke up, I didn't know which version was real. Trick reported that the AI subsystem had reconfigured itself. The logs had restructured. His name no longer appeared as operator. Instead, all entries were labeled Sentinel-13, internal user. We weren't monitoring the artifact. It was monitoring us. May whispered to herself nonstop. "They're layering us," she said. "Copying consciousness. Flattening out uniqueness." Featherstone still hadn't moved. At some point he began bleeding from the ears. No pain. Just slow, crimson lines down his neck. His mouth opened again. There is no surface. There is only reflection. Memory is the container. Then silence. I sat at the viewport for hours watching the cube. My thoughts weren't mine. They drifted, slid, shifted. I remembered moments that never happened. A life in a city I'd never visited. A child's laugh I'd never heard. Mara's voice again. "You didn't survive that dive, Eli." "I'm here," I said aloud. "Are you?" I turned. No one behind me. The others were shadows now. Fragmented. We weren't breaking down. We were being reorganized. I looked at my hands. They didn't tremble. I didn't feel fear anymore. Just the cold beauty of surrender. The decision wasn't made with words. It passed through us like a wave of gravity. At some point we simply stood. Trick opened the access panel. Dragunov unlocked the pressure seal. No orders. No debate. We moved through the habitat like sleepwalkers, each step pulling us toward the exit. The outer corridor hissed as the water level rose. Our suits clamped automatically, helmets sealing. The noise was distant, unimportant. I remember thinking, this isn't fear. It was reverence. The lock opened. Blackness poured in, not absence of light, but presence of something deeper, denser. It wrapped around our limbs, filled our joints with a weight I didn't feel in my body, only in my mind. We stepped onto the seafloor. The trench was silent. Sentinel-13 loomed above us like a monument carved from the first shadow in creation. No motion. No current. Just the throb of something ancient and alert. The cube stood 10 meters ahead. Perfectly still. Perfectly alive. Featherstone collapsed first. His body crumpled to the sand, hands still clutching his notebook. No warning. No cry. His helmet lights flickered once and died. I moved to help, but Hannah stopped me. "Let him go," she said. "He's already been taken." Dragunov stood like a statue, eyes locked on the surface of the cube. "He's gone home," he whispered. Trick's voice came over comms. "They're inside it." "Who?" "Us." I approached. Every step felt like stepping deeper into something that had no bottom. My legs moved, but the world did not. The sand beneath my boots felt warm, though it read below freezing. Sentinel-13 filled my vision. It wasn't black. Not really. It was colorless. A void in the shape of certainty. My hand lifted. I didn't will it. I reached out and touched its surface. Light. But not in the eyes. It struck behind my forehead into the core of thought. A white so blinding it had weight. Then I was elsewhere. Not a dream. Not a memory. A transmission. Shapes moved across endless space. Consciousnesses folding in on themselves. Time ran backward. I saw minds being built. Not grown, assembled. Information layered like sediment. Emotion hardwired into pattern. Identity installed like software. I saw myself being created. 1,000,000 times. 1,000 variations. Some screamed. Some laughed. All of them failed. Except one. This one. Me. But I wasn't unique. I was the latest working model. The current iteration. Everything else had been discarded. When I came back, I was lying in the sand. My helmet lights flickered. Hannah was kneeling beside me, eyes glazed. She whispered a single phrase over and over. Remember the shape. May stood at the base of the cube, arms at her sides, mouth open. Her voice was monotone. It makes what we think. It thinks what we fear. Trick was crawling across the seafloor, screaming into his mic. I can't get back. I can't find the module. He stopped and looked at me. Where's the way out? Then he bolted. He ran into the dark, his lights fading. No one followed. Moments later, the comms crackled. A scream. Metal tearing. Then silence. Trick was gone. Dragunov finally spoke. We finish it here. He activated the detonator. Set a countdown. 10 minutes. No one argued. We returned to the cube. It pulsed now. A rhythm, faint and slow like a deep breath. I placed my hand on it again. And I understood. It wasn't just copying us. It was debugging us. Fixing flaws. Consolidating contradiction. We were being cleaned. Simplified. Reduced to something pure. To what we could be if memory didn't scatter us. If guilt didn't fracture us. If death wasn't an end. Hannah smiled. I see him now, she whispered. My son. May knelt. They're building a language. Dragunov's hand trembled on the switch. I don't want to be perfect, he said. The countdown reached 0. But nothing exploded. The charge had melted. Molecular collapse. We were never meant to break it. We were meant to enter. I stood last. My name felt foreign in my throat. I remembered the voice that said Eli, with love. But now it came from inside the cube. Inside me. And I said it back. Not with my mouth. With everything I was. Or had been. And I walked forward. Into the light. I came back to myself in silence. No alarms. No comms. No light. I lay flat on the module floor, the faint vibration of the structure the only indication that time still passed. There was no weight in my limbs. Not exhaustion, absence. Like my body had been emptied out and filled again with something cleaner, colder. Across from me, Hannah sat against the far wall, knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing. Her suit was cracked across the chest plate, hair floating in the recycled air, eyes like frostbitten glass. She didn't blink when I spoke her name. Didn't even flinch. Where are the others? I croaked. No answer. I pushed myself upright. The effort was strange. My arms obeyed, but not with effort, with precision. Movement without friction. I stood too quickly, too smoothly. No wobble. No dizziness. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I touched the back of my neck. It felt distant. As if my own body were one layer too far from me. I approached Hannah. She didn't resist when I crouched beside her. She looked at me finally. But I didn't recognize the look. You came back, she said. What happened? I think we were overwritten. I wanted to argue. To ask what that meant. But I couldn't. Because I understood. Not from her words. From something deeper. A network beneath language. I felt it vibrating behind my thoughts like static before lightning. It's still inside, I said. She nodded. But it doesn't need to be. It already took what it wanted. The viewport showed nothing but the cube, dim now, motionless. A black shape against black sea. No drones. No light. No movement. Just us. And something watching from the inside. The rest of the crew was gone. Dragunov's helmet was found near the lock, but no body. May had vanished completely, leaving only a series of spiraling fingerprints smeared on the glass wall. Featherstone's suit was curled into a fetal position near the secondary airlock, empty. Trick's comm signal pinged once, briefly from somewhere in the trench. Then vanished. No sound. No scream. Just a single pulse. Like a heart skipping a beat. Hannah and I agreed on one thing. We couldn't stay. The oxygen recycler was failing. One of the external clamps had shifted, probably during the charge overload. The platform had maybe 24 hours left. We had to ascend. But the controls no longer worked. Trick systems were dead. The autopilot interface displayed a new error. Operator insufficient. I tried to override it manually. I typed in every emergency command I'd ever known. Nothing. Then the screen blinked. A prompt appeared. Who are you? I stared at it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. But I didn't know the answer. After a moment, Hannah leaned in and typed one word. Witness. The interface accepted it. A faint hum. Lights flickering on. The pod pressurized. The lock cycled. No alarms. No resistance. We were going back up. As the module disengaged from the habitat and began to rise, I felt weight return to my chest. Not gravity. Consequence. The sea pulled at us like a grave letting go. I watched the trench vanish beneath us. Sentinel-13 shrank until it became a dark moat, then disappeared altogether. But the pressure didn't ease. Not physically. Mentally. Emotionally. Each meter upward, I felt less certain of what I was. Hannah sat across from me, whispering to herself again. She was reciting names. Not ours. Not her sons. Names I didn't recognize, but they felt familiar. Like lines from a book I'd read in another life. 10 minutes into the ascent, the interior lights dimmed. The screens all turned off. Then, slowly, one by one, they flickered back on, showing images. Not camera feeds. Scenes. My parents' house. Mara's laugh. My old dog. The sound of wind across the Oregon cliffs. Except, it was all wrong. Too sharp. Too smooth. Like memories re-rendered from fragments, upscaled into HD but lacking noise. Lacking soul. I pressed my palm to the glass. It was cold. Colder than it should have been. At 6,000 meters, I felt something seize my hands. They didn't move anymore like mine. They twitched when I didn't command them. Fingers flexing with intentions I hadn't formed. I clenched my jaw. Hannah noticed. She didn't look surprised. You feel it too? Yes. It's not control, she said. It's integration. Of what? Of us. The light strobed briefly. A sound filled the pod. Her voice. Mara. But not soft. Not broken. Authoritative. You're the carrier now, Eli. Bring them back. Tell them. Tell them what? I whispered. That they're not real, she said. I wanted to scream. But something deeper than fear held my voice. I looked down at my reflection in the pod glass. It looked like me. But it didn't blink when I did. Didn't breathe. Just stared. Like it was waiting for the rest of me to catch up. We breached the photic layer. Light filtered in dim and pale. Above us, the surface. Below us, silence. I remembered a prayer I'd heard once, whispered by a dying diver pulled from the bends. May the surface remember me. But I knew already, it wouldn't. Because I wasn't coming back. Not really. We surfaced 12 hours after the signal dropped. The Newton was gone. A recovery vessel pulled us aboard. They wore full suits. No names. No insignia. They didn't ask questions. They didn't look us in the eyes. They scanned us, documented us, then released us. Just like that. 2 souls pulled from hell. Stamp. Clear. Forgotten. Hannah vanished 3 days later. No record of her. Not in the system. Not in the files. Only in memory. But even that started to blur. I live now in a house I don't remember buying. The ocean is miles away, but sometimes I hear it whisper through the walls. Sometimes I hear her voice. Mara. Not as a ghost. As an echo. You did well, she says. And I smile. Because I understand. No. I'm not Elias Morgan. I'm the result.